Welcome to Conquering with Calandra. I am the founder and CEO, and this is Hear Their Story. First and foremost, thank you for taking the time out to speak with me and sharing your story. We have with us today Tamiko. Now, Tamiko, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Conquering with Calandra. Conquering with Calandra is a foundation that I started back in 2018. When I found out I had kidney disease and I was facing a lot of issues dealing with my kidneys. So what I wanted to do was to have a platform to be able to discuss the things of the unknown, because when I was going through it, I was searching. Right. YouTube, just anywhere on social media to be able to find out what I was about to start going through, what I was about to start facing. So that is the reason why I started Conquering with Calandra, to be able to share those issues, those topics with others that may be going through kidney disease. Let's take it all the way back. So Tamiko, can you please tell us about your life? How was it growing up?
Growing up, I was the baby. So my siblings are 10 and 11 years older than I am. So really, I was the baby because by the time, I got of age, my sister had moved, was going to college, and my brother was still in the house for a little while. So I'm spoiled. So was me and my mama, or my grandmother played a major role. I was active. I sing, so my grandmother figured it out. One day we was riding in the car, and I was just driving, and I just started singing "Jesus Loves Me." She was like, "Girl, sing that again." And I sang it again, and I didn't see a big deal. And then at that time, my mama was working at Reynolds Health Center, and she rushed me over there. And she was like, my mom was like, "What's wrong, mama?" She was like, "This child can sing," and she told me she sang, and so she said, "Sing that song again." I sang it again, so that started, the church. My mama faith. I'm in church Monday prayer meeting, Wednesday Bible study, Thursday choir rehearsal, Friday prayer night, Saturday choir. It's a rotation. That's church. That's all I knew growing up is church. So I started singing in the youth choir, and then I think I was about 10 or 11, and then I graduated to the adult choir. And then I was going to school, started doing talent shows, local talent shows around the city. I did the Kid Fest. I came in in my category first, and in the overall, and this was hosted by WXII, the news. So overall, I came in second place. So that was me pretty much singing as a kid, running around, doing whatever, talk all the time. And then once I started school, of course, I was in chorus. I actually got put out of chorus.
No.
But I was in chorus. From middle school to high school, started singing the national anthem at the games, and I was in the band too because I love to dance. So I was a flag girl, then from flag girl, banner girl. So most people know me as Tamiko or Tamika. I have to tell you the story about Tamika. As a kid growing up, I was like, why is my name Tamiko and everybody's Tamika? So me being the person that I am, I just started putting the A at the end. And all my friends, Tamika, Tamika Reid, they doing all that. So when it was time to graduate 12th grade, they was like, "It's a problem with graduation." I said, "What you mean?" Because I got all my credits now, honey. And she said, "Well, your birth certificate says something different from the name that you've been using." And I said, "Oh, yeah. And they said, "Well, you gonna have, your diploma is going to state what's on your birth certificate." So from then it was Tamiko. When I did that, I went to UNC Charlotte for undergrad, and I came in using Tamika, and I tried to call home. Back then we had ACUS, so that's your long distance service. And they said, "You have a past due bill," and I said, "I just got here. I'm only 18. I don't have a bill." But so many people, Tamika, so I took on finally at 18 the Tamiko. So people in college or in my adult life know me as Tamiko, but my high school friends, middle school, they know me as Tamiko.
Wow. Okay.
So that's pretty much, undergrad, I sang weddings, all kind of stuff, gospel choir. that's pretty much me. Me and people say I should do stand up comedian or stand up comedy. I don't know about
I
it.
don't know.
I'm just I tell stories and I talk about stuff, but it's real life to me.
Right.
But I mean,
Right.
it is kind of funny. But you wouldn't believe the stuff that happens, and I'd be like, no, this really happened. I'm not playing. I'm serious. But I mean, it's just it's comedy to them, and just pretty much. I mean, I've always, like I said, my mother instilled in me faith. So I've always had that churchy, had that faith. That's just me. I always took the good with the bad, and I always see a positive out of every situation. I mean, going through college, just everything. So when this thing hit me I was 26, and it was 2004. And when that thing hit, and I went to the doctor, and they was like, we want to send you to the hospital.
Okay. Okay. So, so with that being said, when did you notice something was taking place, like with your body? Did you have any symptoms that made you feel like something was going on with your kidneys?
I never did. And that's why I was shocked.
Mm-hmm.
I hear people say, I stopped using the bathroom, or I couldn't urinate, or I started feeling sluggish. None of those things ever. So
Wow.
I thought I was perfectly fine. I did go to the doctor regularly, and there was an instance where they found protein in my urine.
Mm-hmm.
So she sent me over to a nephrologist I did a 24-hour urine specimen, and I got the results back, and they was like, we want you to come back in. Yeah, I never did.
Wow. Wow. So did your doctors tell you anything that made you think like, oh my God, like what's happening?
Well, they said protein,
Mm-hmm.
and so I started reading up.
On
Okay,
protein.
protein in your kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
And I started reading up on it. I was like, but I don't feel. I never felt any kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nothing to the fact that, your kidneys, because at that point, I wasn't on blood pressure medication.
Okay.
And although I've always been a little bit on the fluffy side, I still was pretty much healthy outside the fact that they're like, you obese, you need to lose weight. That was it. But I never had any kind of blood pressure issues. I've never had diabetes. Never had any kind of health issues. I'd had surgery. My tonsils taken out and anodes removed. And then I believe it was 1998, I had a breast reduction. But other than that, no health issues.
Nothing alerted you. Oh,
Nothing.
Wow. So what was going through your mind at that time whenever, you had to go in and see the doctors to try to figure out like what was going on?
Well, for me, when I did the urinal and they called me back and said, "Oh, we want you to come back in the office. We want you to talk about this," and I said, "Okay." And I'm like, and that was about 2 years prior to actually getting whammed in the face at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So when they first initially told me that the results of the urinalysis, I was like, okay. And I'm like thinking like, I'm still in my prime. So honestly, I just kept on with life as usual. And I was like, just a little protein. Maybe I ate too much meat, or maybe it was because I would take over the counter medicine.
Okay.
I was like, maybe it's, something spiked it up. So honestly, I really didn't think about it. I carried on life as usual because I didn't think it was that serious.
So what type of experiences did you go through? Like, what was the hardest thing to digest? What was the hardest thing you had to face with the news dealing with your kidneys?
Acceptance that this was actually happening to me. Because growing up, I had a church member, and she was on dialysis. And I saw, her complexion change, like she got darker. And I was like, well, Mom, why she got that? She was like, she's on dialysis, and, she had to go a couple times a week. And when he said that, when I was laying in the bed, and I thought that flashed in my head, and I'm like, I know he ain't talking to me. And I lost it. The doctor, I couldn't already understand what he was saying because he was of African descent. So he came in and he was talking fast, and I'm just looking at him like, I say, what now? I'm gonna have to go on what? Because of what? And they never did a kidney biopsy, which I hadn't started doing research then, so I didn't know, that they're supposed to do that prior
Right.
to figure out
Right.
why. So it was acceptance. So my pastor at the time, he came in because they was like, she is gone. She not listening. She don't want the doctor to come in
Right.
here. She don't want nobody. And it was hard for me because I was in Charlotte. My family was here. And my mama drove the school bus, so she couldn't really get down during the week. So she would come on the weekends. And my pastor came in and we watched the video. And he was like, we going to sit and we going to watch this video. And then we going to take it in and I'm going to talk to you. So I said, okay, I received it. So we watched the video. And I was like, okay. I'm still like, I'm not doing that. And so he had a pamphlet and we went over and then, he started getting spiritual and stuff. He was like, God takes you through certain things. And I'm like, you have to bring God. You ain't have to say I'll bring these scriptures and this and stuff. So at that moment, I was like, he convinced me. He was like, do you want to live or do you want to die? And I said, well, I'm not. It can't be time for me to die. So let's do it. And the next day, I remember going down, getting it, and I remember waking up and I was on the actual machine, and I had my anxiety. I spazzed out a little bit, and it was like, it's okay, calm down. And then after that, I think that was a Tuesday, and by that Friday, I was out of the hospital, and then I had to go to my first dialysis center on that Saturday. So that experience was something else.
Yeah.
That I hated my initial clinic. It was dirty, filthy. It didn't smell good. And I just thought, I met the charge nurse. She was real nasty. She didn't have bedside manner to me. When you're in the health profession and somebody or something that serious hits you, you're already like, oh Lord. Then again, my family wasn't here. I had friends, and they band together and they were supportive. And I had my church family and my pastor. But it's just to have, when you're already scared, and then to go into an environment and the faces are not friendly or they're not accommodating, that it was a rough experience for me. And the first couple of treatments, because they was trying to get the meds, trying to get me at a level, they put me on like 3 blood pressure pills, and I'm like, but I've never had high blood pressure. So I would actually bottom out, meaning I would go out and somebody would have to tell them, hey, you need to turn her machine off because she's getting ready to go under. So they would have to run, turn it off and just clean the blood, but not take any fluids off. And so that transition, that was really rough for me. That center was really rough for me.
Wow. Yeah, when you go into those dialysis clinics, it does make a difference when you have nurses that care, and then sometimes you have nurses that don't care. And I can relate to that because when I did dialysis, my training, it was hard. Going into the clinics, like even when I walked to the door, I had like a breakdown. I just cried and I cried and I couldn't understand, like, why me? Why me? But yeah, it makes a big difference. Anybody that goes into a dialysis clinic, if you feel like you're not being treated right, you have to speak up for yourself. So did you ever get to the point of mentally where you just felt like giving up or asking why me, just like, you stated before? So how was your mental state during that process, going through that?
Initially, at that particular treatment center, mentally, I had accepted the fact, okay, this is my life now. I'm still alive. It could be worse.
Right.
And so I'm just going to try to make the best of it. So back then we had MP3 players. So I downloaded I love Whitney Houston. Now I just that's my all-time favorite. And I downloaded Whitney Houston, Smoking Over, Kurt Franklin, and so that was my coping mechanism. Honestly, that's how I got through it, because they would put me on a machine and do whatever they need to do, get me hooked up, and then I would put the MP3 player in my ear and I would sing until I fell asleep. Another thing that helped me, for some reason, on the machine, I would itch. Like I had eczema before. So on the machine and whatever chemicals ran through it, I would have an allergic reaction. So from after about 3 weeks, when I told my actual doctor about it. So every time I got on, they would give me 50 milligrams of Benadryl, and they would stick it in, and I would be woozy. In other words, I would be high.
Right.
And when I first went on, I would actually sleep pretty much most of the treatment, and then I would wake up, put my MP3 player on.
Right.
After then, I started reading, educating myself on the disease, how it affects African Americans. And once I started looking into it and investigating, and was like, well, could I have gone for a second opinion? Or this can't be how it's supposed to be. When I started doing that, I started staying up. Now, one thing I developed anxiety. I had a little bit of claustrophobia beforehand, but just being on the machine, sometimes I would sleep in those times that when they had me on all the medication piled up and they was taking out so much fluid and I would go under. I think that was the point that I developed anxiety. So sometimes I would wake up and it would just feel like it's just dark and the room is closing in on me. Yeah. And I would react and scream and act out. And then after that, because I would drive myself. I was like, I don't want to. Well, for about 3 months, I didn't work. I couldn't. But after I went back to work, started researching, and I drove myself, that's when I started to feel a little bit better. And then I start seeing the brighter side of it, because it was some people that came in there and they came in a hospital bed. Some people looked like they had 1 foot on earth, 1 foot in the grave. Some people were on and they complained the whole time. Yeah. And I was like, I got to do something, because this is sad. Right. So I would sing or I would make jokes and, kind of lighten up the room. When your environment, if it's looking depressed, that's going to rub off on you. So I tried to make light of it and make it kind of fun. And so after I started doing that, start talking to the people around here and their stories, that's what made it better for me, because I can make somebody else's time on the machine, a little bit better.
Yeah. Wow. So when you got the call that you had a kidney waiting for you, what was that like? Like, where was your donor from? Just that whole experience. But basically, when that telephone rung,
I was in disbelief. Because that Wednesday, because I had been worked up for transplant a year prior, but they was like, well, you need to lose a little weight, so you won't be at risk. Right. So I hadn't thought anything else about it that Wednesday, because I was in the hospital, because my catheter had came out in dialysis about 2 weeks before. And so they was like, we can't dialyze you because it's hanging out. It was in my groin at that point, because I had ran out of everywhere else. So it was in my groin, and it just drooped on out. And they was like, you just sitting there, yeah. And they took me out of there in the ambulance. And so I was in the hospital indefinitely, because they were trying to figure out, we got to dialyze you. How are we going to dialyze you? So the transplant doctor came in there Wednesday and was like, I'm going to put you before the board. We still have your workup stuff, and you've lost weight. I was like, well, I've been eating, but okay. And so he said that. And then after that Thursday, a chaplain came in. And he said, I'm the chaplain. I said, yeah, I know who you are. And, he said, well, I'm here because you have some decisions to make. And I said, well, what kind of decisions? And he said, well, you haven't dialyzed. You haven't been dialyzed, and you needed to live. And you haven't had it in over a week. I said, my normals, they fine, know. Right. And he was like, so I need you to sign a power of attorney. And I said, power of attorney for what?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, because at some point, you're not going to be coherent. And I said, let me stop you right now. I said, because the God I serve, he did not tell me that I came in here. I didn't come here to die. I'm not going to die. And I said, so you can just go. I don't need none of them papers. You can go on out. So that Friday, transplant, my mama worked. And she got home and she called me at 10:30. And she said, girl. And I said, what? Girl, they done called and said you was on the transplant list. And I said, I'm on the transplant? She said, yeah, girl, they said it was approved. And so I got pumped up. But then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, people say they on this list for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. How long do I have to wait?
Right.
So me not thinking about it, I'm carrying on, cutting up in the hospital. And that Sunday morning, they had brought my breakfast, and I was just getting ready to eat it. And I got a phone call. She said, Miss Reid? I said, this is she. She said, this is such and such, and I'm calling. I forgot what she said she was calling for. She said, but I'm calling you with some good news. I said, okay. She said, have you had your breakfast yet? And I said, no, but I'm getting ready to. And she said, well, don't eat it. I said, now, lady. Now, I'm a big girl, and I'm hungry, and this blueberry, I'm about to eat this. She said, no, don't eat it. I said, well, why? She said, because we got you a kidney. And I said, I just got on the list Friday. And she said, I know. She said, luck. And I said, no, that's God.
That's God. Yeah.
And I said, you know, I said that was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And he had said in 3 days. And so I said, she said, don't eat. It's coming from Ohio. It's your same blood type. Of course, they're going to check it when it gets here. So they'll probably come get you about 8 o'clock. And then you'll be going down. You'll probably go in the OR at about 10. And I said, okay, girl. She told me, are you excited? I said, I don't know what to feel right now. And so I said, okay, I'm got to go call my mama. So I called my mama, and I said, she told me, what? Because my mama dramatic. And I say, they say I got a kidney. All I heard was the phone crash down and somebody in the back shouting, getting it. And hung up the phone on me. She called back. She said, now, did you say you got a kidney? I said, that's what they said. Told me not to eat my food. And she said, okay, bye, I got to call the world. And so about 2 hours later, the world was in my room. I was like, well, who are these people? I said, my best friend came. My classmates came up the road from Charlotte. My roommates. My mama's pastor. Friends. High school friends. I mean, it was a room full of people. And they was like, ooh, some of these people, they was like, just let them go in there. And at that point, I was still, I think, in disbelief. So at one point, I had got on my bed and I was walking on the bed. And Mama told me, y'all gonna have to get her some medicine. Cause she, and so they gave me some Ativan. And I kind of calmed down. And, they came in. My other high school best friend, her and her husband, first lady and pastor of a church, they came in. They prayed. My mom was pastor. He prayed. And in the midst of praying, I felt myself snore. Had fell asleep, woke back up. And they was like, well, she's going to be going down in a few. And they asked, well, can we go down? And they was like, you can't go in the OR. Right. But what we can do, y'all can walk with her. And once she get to the OR, we'll leave the door open for y'all to say whatever you need to say, and then we'll close it. Right. And I was on that was 8th floor, and that's in Baptist Hospital in Winston, 8th floor, the neurology floor. And we drove down. On the way to the elevator, they always had old dialysis machines sitting on the outside of the door. So I said, wait, stop. Told the man to stop. And I touched it. And I said, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And I said, I will not return to these machines.
I know that's right.
And my mama, she started cutting up, and she started cutting up again.
You about to get me stirred up.
She started cutting up again, and they was cutting up, and I remember them wheeling me into the pre-op room. And, they opened the door, and they said, all your friends and family out. Wave, and I waved, and they gave me something. Next thing I remember is waking up in the middle of the surgery to get the transplant.
Wow. Look how God works.
He did
he
his
said
big
3
one.
days.
Yeah, that's what
all
it
right
said.
now.
And I always say it, and in 3 days.
3 days.
And the story goes on.
Oh, my goodness.
And
you were already in position. You was already in the hospital.
There. Yeah.
Wow.
Because that was one of my fears, is that I would get the phone call and I would be out, or I couldn't make it to the hospital.
Right.
That was always one of the fears that I had. And I was there in position, in place. I mean,
wow. Look how God works.
He
works.
He did that.
He's working miracles. Oh my
did
goodness.
That was.
My goodness. Yes. So after your surgery, did you have any complications or did you experience anything out of the normal after your transplant?
Nothing. I remember, well, the only thing is I couldn't wake up. I woke up and I remember being in ICU, and I still had the tube down my throat because they said I didn't wake up when they was trying to wake me up. And so they was like, you kept falling asleep. And so I remember I used the bathroom, and I was feeling nasty, so I wrote on the board, and I told my mama, I said, the nurse, she didn't clean my behind good. And she said, what? And I said, she didn't clean my butt. I couldn't say it, but I wrote it on the thing. Bad. And I remember all of the nurses from the times that I had been, because I was like, this is stock. This is my second home because I had been so much.
Right.
Because I would get infection after infection. And all of the nurses that I had from the first, when I moved back and start, doing it here, all of them was around, and they was like, you can't talk now. Look at you. You can't say nothing, and we can talk all that kind of junk. And I was just sitting there, and I wrote on the board, I will get you when I get up. I will get you. I mean, the only thing is they kept, a respiratory team came in the second day. They was like, okay, Miss Reid, we gonna sit you up, and now when we get ready to pull this, we need you to breathe like you throwing up. And I woke up, and I was like, my mama was in there, and I said, why this tube still in my throat? She told me, because you fell asleep. You keep falling asleep. They was like, we gonna try again tomorrow. And so by that point, I didn't feel clean, so I was like, okay, I'm going to be up because I need to wash my own self. So the next day they came in, they said, Miss Reid, you ready? And I said, and so they leveled the bed up. And then when they pulled it out, I mean, I made it sound like the exorcist. They was like, now, Miss Reid. I mean, I was like, and they was like, I said, ooh, my throat was kind of sore, but I could talk. And the first thing I said, Dr. Rogers, I said, can you get me a rag? Because that's what we say. And some soap. I said, because she didn't wipe my butt good. And his face got red.
You was focused on getting clean.
I was focused on, I'm not clean. And he said, that's all you want? I said, and something to eat. But after that, I think about a month or two later, I did the kidney biopsy. And that was fine. And since then, as far as kidney, nothing. I mean, my creatinine, just last year actually, my creatinine spiked to like a 2.0, which is, that's high.
Right.
And I was worried about that. But I think it was because I was taking antacids, and my doctor said, well, who told you to take that? I said, well, myself. And she said, well, tell yourself don't take it no more. But other than that, I haven't had any issues as far as kidney-wise.
Wow.
So it's been a smooth, because, they tell you, you could get it and it may take a minute for it to wake up and work. So you may have to go back on. And I was like, well, I can accept that as long as it's not. And I still said, I'm still so blessed because I had a friend. Prior to that, I had a friend. She had a liver transplant. Okay. And she had gotten her third one. And the third one, it didn't take. And she died. So it was just a lot of things that was in the back of my mind. Right. And I'm like, but he carried me. Everything that I had a doubt about, and he wiped the doubt away. Like everything that I had anxiety about, I didn't have to go through it. Right. I mean, he paved that way with, it was like a smooth sailing. Yeah. I mean, it was smooth.
Wow. So how many years has it been since your transplant?
January 10th made 14 years.
14 years. And this is with the same kidney?
The same kidney.
Wow.
14 years. So I'm blessed. I tell people all the time, they say, you be smiling and stuff. Girl, I'm living on borrowed time out here.
I know that's right.
I said, I paid for a life insurance policy. I said, but this one was free. I said, so I'm just out here living. Thank you,
Yeah.
God. I'm just out here living. I'm living on borrowed time, honey.
Yes, yes. So, what is life like now on the other side of the battle?
Post transplant, first couple of years, smooth sailing. Transitioning from being out and being on disability to going back to work. The first job I had was teaching, and I love kids, and it was good, but of course, kids have germs.
Mm-hmm.
So the germs, I would stay sickly all the time. So my nephrologist was like, "Yeah, I don't think that's gonna be the job for you. I know you love kids, but
Right.
we gotta maintain your health,
Yeah.
so we can maintain your kidney, the
Mm-hmm.
longevity of it." So then I had a background in customer service. I started doing customer service. Never had an issue at that job as far as insurance and everything. And then I left there, started a new job.
Mm-hmm.
And then their insurance company, I'm not going to say their name, but their insurance company, it's the worst as far as meds. And now I understand going through the process of transplant, why they, have you talk to a financial advisor,
Right.
and then why you have to talk to a therapist. And one thing that stuck out, getting worked up for transplant, I said, well, why do you need to know about finances? And she
Right.
said, well, it's important because a transplant is X amount of dollars. And she said the upkeep and the meds, once you graduate out of the programs where you can get free meds or you can get a discount, the meds are expensive.
Very. Mm-hmm.
And she said, we want you to we have to know that you're going to be able to keep up with it.
Right.
She was like, because if you can't keep up with it, then the transplant is going to fail. And we feel like that's just a wasted transplant. We could have gave it to somebody else. And I'm thinking like, that's rude. But
Right.
now I understand that because, you have to I get my transplant meds, my immunosuppression drugs. I have to get it from their specialty clinic.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to get a 3-month supply. So just 3 of the meds by themselves monthly, it's about $1,000. That's after insurance.
Mm.
And then if you work, you got car payment, you got light bill, you
Right.
got this, and then you got to pay this. They telling you, okay, you got to pay this, and God forbid if they add another med,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're saying, okay, here's another $300. So that for me is the hardest part.
Yeah.
Now, post transplant, the meds and the lack of help that you get, once you graduate out of the Medicare or the Medicaid, that's stressful.
Mm-hmm.
That really stresses me out sometimes. Sometimes I be like, this getting on my nerves.
Right.
And it brought me back because I remember a guy that was on dialysis at my first dialysis center. He had a transplant,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, I work. He said, but after the transplant, you still have some of the side effects that you would have. And he said, so sometimes I'm not at work. If I don't go to work, I don't
Right.
get paid. And he was like, the upkeep of the medicines, and it depends on how many that you're on.
Right.
He said, and you have to pay for that. You can't maintain it. So he was like, I just told him, take it. And he chose to go back on dialysis.
Wow.
And I did not understand that until recently. I said, well, I see. Because he's telling the truth, because this could be real stressful.
Yeah. Very
But
expensive.
other than that, just the meds, they are expensive. And when you call these people and like, well, I got to get this, they do not care. I'm like, well, what if it was your family member?
Exactly.
How would you feel? Or what would you want somebody to tell them?
Yeah, I think that's very important to have some type of resource to
Right.
help with those medical causes, because I have met some transplant patients where they couldn't afford it and then they end up losing the kidney and having to go back on dialysis.
Yeah.
So it's very important for us to try to find some type of resources.
Right.
So can you leave a word of encouragement for someone out there that may be watching, that's going through dialysis at the moment, or they may be on the list waiting for a transplant, just encourage them to just try to stay positive, motivated during that process.
It's hard. I mean, it can get you down, but you have to find something that brings you solace and something that brings you peace. And when you find that thing, you hold on to it, and you just gotta know. I mean, trouble don't last always. And my thing was, I never asked why me. I said, well, it's a reason why. I'm not gonna ask, so I'm just gonna go through it. But it's gonna be a testimony after this. And I used to always say, even the very first day that I walked into that worst treatment, I was like, I'm not gonna be on this always. And people used to ask, well, why do you figure that you're not? Because this ain't how the Lord wants my life to be. Right. I said, I'm going to be a testimony. I'm not going to be on here always. Right. And don't give up. Don't lose faith. Research. Do your own research. Learn your body. But just don't give up. Joy, it always comes in the morning.
Yes. Well, I want to take this time out to just let you know that you really have encouraged me, and in this moment with me coming up on my 4th year with my transplant anniversary, you really motivated me to just stay positive, just keep looking towards God, standing on his word, and just keeping that faith going during any dark hours that I may come up against. So I just want to thank you, and also just encourage you to keep speaking about your testimony, how God made a way in those 3 days. I mean, oh my God, that just stirred my spirit up right there. And then you are in the right place at the right time, regardless of that situation. You was there. Yep. And everything worked out in his will.
According to his will.
According to his will. So I just want to thank you so much for taking time out to speak with me today and just sharing your story and your testimony.
It's therapy for me when I talk about it, because I've never sat down and talked about it really with anybody. So when I talk about it, it's like therapy for me.
Yeah. Awesome. So there was a little birdie.
Oh, here go birds.
That told me that you like to sing, and I kind of heard a little sample of it on social media.
Ooh,
so could you end this segment with a song?
Let me see what's weapon in my heart.
Okay, Lord, work it out.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn through the storm, through the night. Lead me on to the light. Take my hand, and precious Lord, and lead me home.
My God. And on that note, I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye-bye.